that, hey, what's up, you? A little dark over there. Working with light here. Here we go. You know that, hey, Grace, all of our guilt that we experience as human beings, from a Course in Miracles perspective, is the belief, the truth. True, it's an illusion, but it's the fact that we split from God. So you and I, in the mind, through the ego, we often see ourselves as a body, as an ego, when in reality, the only truth is that we're spirit. That's the only truth. That is our complete reality. Hey, lovely. Our complete reality. However, when the ego decided to split from God and see itself as a body, as an ego, fear, and endless problems, that's when this just absolutely crushing, paralyzing guilt began to set in. But on a worldly level, we're not talking about the Course perspective. Boy, I look really dark in here, but that's okay. For YouTube at least, but whatever. This is how it goes, guys. On a worldly level, one of the greatest stealers of happiness for all of us, that just it causes so much unhappiness in life, so much pain and sickness and suffering and sadness and depression and rage and anger. It's guilt. Guilt is the ultimate happiness stealer. And the reason why is we're clinging to feeling bad about relationships, feeling bad, hey John, about family, friends, pets, animals. There's so much feeling bad that's passed from ego, from mind to mind over generations, days, months, years, that the ego clings to. And as long as you cling to that guilty feeling, you will block your happiness, because you can't be happy and free and feeling really good when you're clinging in your mind to bad feelings, to rough feeling emotions. And guilt is at the top of the list of bad feeling emotions. And most of us know that. We feel guilty about relationships with our parents, appearing to make people unhappy. Of course, everybody chooses in their mind how to live their life. Everybody's making a choice. We're all projecting. There's no victims out there. Everybody chooses. We're all gods with the lowercase g, working with God, that projects our reality, our experience from our mind. But there's guilt concerning children, concerning parents, concerning brothers and sisters and society and having wealth. There's, on a worldly level, I'm going to use the term, some people talk about white guilt or traveler's guilt. If someone from a Western world travels to a country where there may be the illusion, the appearance of poverty, that triggers a lot of guilt in people. Why did I grow up in a country where there appears to be great worldly wealth? Never mind the fact that so many people mentally in a very horrible place in the Western world. And the ego will say, oh, and guilt. Why do I have all this freedom? Am I enjoying all this fun when these other people are suffering, appear to be suffering? So guys, if you want to really burrow down into developing a happy, peaceful, relaxed, predominantly state of mind, you have to begin seeing your mind in the light of truth and ferreting out, rooting out guilt. That general blanket feeling that people pass from mind, of course, from one person to the other. I feel bad about this. I feel bad about that. I feel bad about this. I should have done this when I was younger. I feel bad about not responding or replying to a person in a certain way from the past. And it's just this general idea of when you cling to guilt and these guilty emotions and this sad, sad feeling of just loss. It's similar to a weight in your mind, like an anchored weight. It's like the mind can't move forward into freedom and happiness and joy and health and strength when it feels guilty, because it can't move forward into these really, really uplifting, loving, truthful, reality-based emotions when it's held back into the past, in the past, I should say, from the emotion of guilt. And guilt is a horrible, horrible feeling emotion. I mean, it's just fear manifest as guilt, but feeling the emotion of guilt is pretty much right up there. And again, when you're talking the Course in Miracles perspective, the guilt began when you and I, or any time, let's say it began when the ego split from God. So this idea of, in reality, in truth, we're all just spirits. This body's an illusion. It's a puppet. It's a dummy. It's a mannequin. It's just animated by the mind. However, when the split happened, the split from God, and the ego said, "You're a body," guilt began. And that's just that really, really absolute, from a Course perspective, just crushing guilt. Imagine how horrific and how horrible life would be when you decided not to be a spirit that's infinite with an unlimited mind that's in harmony with God. Think of that bliss and that happiness and that love and just joy, and then identifying with a body that appears to die, that appears to be real, and all the fears that come from living through the ego. The fears manifest as depression, the illusion of physical sickness, the illusion of mental sickness, the illusion of mental illness. None of these things are real or true. However, they appear to be true and they appear to be real almost solely because, or really, when you're thinking again from the ACIM perspective, of Course in Miracles, solely because of guilt. Now, on a worldly level, if that seems a little too heady for you and you're thinking, oh my goodness, start observing your mind as it is in truthful, clear fashion. What do you feel guilty about? In terms of interacting with people, do you feel guilty predominantly, or even a smidge? Or there's probably that, a deeper guilt in terms of relationship with your parents who are alive, with your parents who since left their mortal coil, who since passed on, with your brothers, with your sisters, with pets. I felt, and I know it was a projection, there's deeper level stuff there, but I felt crushing, crippling guilt when I gave up my 3 cats, when the house was sold and I decided to give up the cats to loving homes. But I cried like a baby until I almost threw up, guttural crying, and it was just this crushing guilt. And again, a projection of the ego, but I had to face, feel, and release that feeling of guilt through tears and crying to be free of it. Because if I wasn't free of the guilt, not only would I not be happy, predominantly, but that guilt would influence all the decisions I would be making going forward. And it influenced a lot of the decisions on some level prior to me releasing it, when I released the cats and found them loving homes. Guys, if you make choices with guilt, Angel, in mind, joking, you're going to make guilty choices. And guilty choices are fear-based choices. And fear-based choices lead to poverty, sickness, mental illness, subjugation, trusting people who lie to you, disbelieving people who tell you the truth. There'll be a disbelief that you're a spirit and a pure belief that you're a body. And let's see how that's really benefited the world since the dominant news headline of 2020, March. You guys know what that news headline has been? I don't follow the news, but I'm aware that there's been a dominant news headline since March 2020. And look at the world, how it's, hey, Danilo, how the world has appeared to be because of fear and guilt. And guilt's just, it's one of the ultimate happiness stealers. You have to, guys, face the guilt in your mind, or you'll never be happy. Because as long as you are grounded, guilted into the past, and that's all that guilt is. It's this horrible feeling of fear that ties you to the past, to a person, place, or thing, you can't be happy in the moment. In the moment is where you'll be happy, right here and now, because that's the only reality. When you feel really guilty about anything, anyone, any event, all it does is lead to problems, mental sickness, body problems, body sickness, strained relationships, anger, rage, sadness, depression, grieving. Grieving's really, really huge. Grieving's a biggie, guys. Guilt fuels grieving. And although grieving is a natural organic process, if you don't face the guilt that fuels the grief and really step into it, this grieving process will go on indefinitely. And as long as you're grieving, you feel guilty. And as long as you're guilty, you're never really going to be happy. Because you can't be happy now when you're tied to a past. That's an illusion anyway. And when you're tied to people and you're tied to places and events. And of course, this tying, this attachment, it comes from a very deep, low energy of loss, of sadness, of regret. So when you're experiencing those fears in your mind, those emotions, two emotions cannot occupy the mind at the same time, even if it feels like your mind's going in a million places and you're really upset. There's either love in your mind, which is reality, or fear. And guilt is one of these real strong, powerful fears, pretty much at the top of the list. So you'll have to face your guilt now. You have to feel your guilt. And that's really the path of not only happiness, but wellness, freedom, liberation, love, generous service. And just as an example, guys, I was thinking about creating this video, broadcasting live, and in my mind, there's a few ideas that came up, and I'm thinking, I feel kind of a little guilty. I did that. It's been a while since I'd shared a personal development video, and how I do enjoy sharing these, but in my mind, it was that feeling of, I felt kind of bad that I hadn't, and feeling kind of bad that I hadn't is obviously guilt. I feel kind of guilty that I haven't been around as much to help you guys and to share my thoughts and to spread love. And then that feeling of badness / guilt almost, and it would have been a choice, almost influenced me to say, forget it. I'll just not do the video, not broadcast live for you guys. Why? Again, guilt. So I had to sit with that guilty feeling and feel it. Creating this video does tend to give me greater happiness. I'm stepping into love. I'm helping folks. There's no real attachment to any outcome. I'm not tied to anything. I'm just creating for the sake of creating, for helping people. And my intent is to really, really help you guys. Really help you guys with what I know and with what I'm learning from the course. We're down to 5%. So the phone's almost out. I know the charger's around, but I was going to kind of cut it short anyway because I wanted to bring the dogs out. So I'll do more of these Course in Miracles based videos, because one of the concepts of the course, guys, and you find it at acim.org, you also find it on Amazon, but acim.org, A Course in Miracles, is to learn, teach. So as you teach, you learn. And we know this, all walks of life, but with the course, I step more into it. I want to start fleshing out what I'm learning from the course and teaching it to you guys to spread the word, to share the word, to help you guys free yourself from guilt, to live more from love, to have more fun, to live your dreams, to uplift. So guys, that's it for tonight, or morning, wherever you are in the world. YouTube, this looks kind of funky. I look like I'm in a very, very shadowy type of place. I was like 15 minutes anyway, so that's cool. But I will be back. Thanks so much, Danilo, Angel, Joven, Lovely, Grace, John, you guys rock. Much love, everybody. Guilt is the great happiness stealer. If you want to be happy, you really want to feel good, just be happy. Predominantly, begin digging deeper into your mind and start ferreting out, start rooting out, start feeling guilt. Doesn't feel good, but in order to be free of it, in order to clear it, to be more happy, to be more at peace, you have to feel it. And as you feel it, this is as the course explains, it's an unwinding. You've been wound up with guilt, and these insane ideas of fear and being a body and an ego. And you have to unwind it by feeling it. So it feels really bad as you're unwinding it, but after you unwind it, you start to realize that it's all in your mind. Life is in your mind. Your experience is in your mind. It's all a projection. The analogy I've used is like a movie screen. Your mind is a projector, and it projects the body image, which is an illusion. It projects this physical world. It's just all happening in your mind. The more you face your guilt, you become one with truth. You realize it internally. You're like, holy smokes, I'm projecting this whole experience like a movie. And guilt's one of those blockers, not just to happiness, but to health, wellness, peace of mind, reality, truth, to cut through the illusions, the veil of illusions that's out there, that appears to be out there. So guys, thanks so much again. Feel free to share this with your friends if you enjoyed it. Ta-ta, YouTube and Facebook. I will see you guys later.